So, hello, Bob Culver. It's good to see you again. And thank you, my friend, for talking to my students and people that are interested in what it's like for you to have had PTSD as being a Vietnam veteran and what it's like for you now. So, how about introduce yourself, what your role was in the Vietnam War, how long you were there for, and then what it was like for you afterwards, for a start?
Okay, well, I went to Vietnam in 1968 through 1970, and
How old were you then?
pardon?
How old were you then when you were
Oh, I was eight. I was 18 years old,
18 through to 20?
18 through 20,
Yeah,
and I did another couple of years after I came back.
right.
And I was assigned to the 23rd Military Police, where we did convoys and we did POWs and go in the field and saw some action and stuff like that. And it didn't really bother me while I was there because you just had to do what you had to do.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing was after I came home was when I came home I thought I was fine.
Yeah.
I got married, had two kids. I never drank, I never smoked, I never drank coffee, never did anything.
Hmm.
Well, when I was over there, I did a little bit, but when I came home, I thought I was fine.
Yeah.
And the part about the PTSD is that it sneaks up on you over the years,
Mm.
and it's something that we don't talk about. It's something I was having nightmares and hallucinations, and
Flashbacks?
I wasn't right.
Did you have
And
flashbacks?
I'm sorry.
Did you have flashbacks as well?
Oh yeah, I had flashbacks. I had hallucinations. I thought there was people with machetes standing on my bedside.
Yeah.
Um, I I would wake up in cold sweats. I would like my bed looked like I got into a fight with somebody overnight, and it was like it started out slow. It's not anything, I remember one time I was staying over at my fiance and her mother's house, and a fire truck come down the road, and I dove and hid under the bed.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was an automatic reaction, so because your fight and flight
And
response was on.
you duck and cover, and
Yeah.
was so used to that. And it took. I mean, and back then there was no such thing as PTSD. World War II, they called it shell shock,
Yeah.
and things like that. So I went a lot of years, and I that's when I started really drinking and drugging heavily, and turned into a bloody flaming alcoholic or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And it ruined my life. It destroyed my marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Only after all of these years, my daughter talks to me. Thank God, recently, my son is starting to talk to me now. Thank God.
Mm-hmm.
And and when I spent a lot of time in psychiatric hospitals and VA hospitals.
Yeah.
I did 3 or 4 years on and off in 5 or 6 different states,
Right.
without exaggeration. And it took me a long time, and then finally they sent me to programs to learn about PTSD.
Yes.
Once I learned about PTSD and exactly what PTSD and how it affects your life, was when I started getting the gist of it. And then, after a few years, and I mean, I understood it and everything, and they had me on, the veterans had me on so many medications. I was taking about 15 medications a day,
Wow.
but I was still drinking.
Yeah. And I
And then,
believe you got into lots of trouble when you were in that state. You got some homelessness and some things that you weren't proud of.
I did what?
You did some things you weren't proud of when you were in that state.
No, I did a lot of things that I'm not proud of. I did a lot of things that I'm ashamed of.
Mm-hmm.
I did some not nasty things. I mean, I didn't rob people or break into cars or do anything like that. But I did manipulate people. I did use people.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
There was no. We built up a wall, and I just didn't care. I didn't care what I did to somebody.
Yes.
I mean, you know, no matter what, I just didn't care. I had no emotional feelings whatsoever. And I got to the point before, even during when I was in the VAs, I woke up every morning and I wanted to commit suicide.
Mm.
Every single day, that was my first thought on my mind.
Yeah.
I wanted to kill myself. And I did try it 3 times.
Mm.
And even while going through the VA and everything else, I just wanted to kill myself.
Right.
I felt totally useless, totally abandoned. I was all by myself, and I just didn't want to live anymore.
Mm.
And I had no purpose. I mean, I worked. I made money. I got through life, and it was just like the nightmares and the flashbacks and everything else was just. It was a constant daily thing. When I woke up and I said, well, I wanted to figure out how I could kill myself. To me, it was like waking up and wanting to kill yourself was like normal people getting up and having a cup of coffee and brushing their teeth and taking a shower.
Yeah.
That's how normal it was. And it was so bad. And like I said, I tried it 3 times.
Mm.
And it was just like, you know, and I was just living for the moment, not caring, not doing anything, just doing what I did. Yep. And I tried, but I couldn't do it on my own. I just couldn't do it on my own.
Yeah. And then your brother introduced you to EFT.
I'm sorry?
Then your brother introduced you to Gary Craig and EFT in San Francisco.
He introduced me to EFT with Gary Craig, but I just went through the motions of life. I mean, I had no purpose, no nothing. My family, I take full responsibility for destroying my family life, my wife, my kids, and everything that I've done. And I take full responsibility for that. Mm. And my kids knows it, and my ex-wife knows it, and I take full responsibility. And I was just like, it was like being a zombie. Mm. You just go through life.
Yeah.
And one day, my brother calls me up, and he said he had gotten a hold of this guy, Gary Craig, in California. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Did you ever hear of EFT?" And I said, "No." And he says, "Well, he sent me a link to Gary Craig in California."
Yep.
And he said it might do you some good. And I said, "Okay." So I contacted him, mm-hmm. and I talked to him. Mm-hmm. And I talked to him. We talked a couple of times on the phone, and I told him my experiences. I told him about Vietnam, and I talked to him about this and that. He says, I'd like you to do something." I go, "What?" He says, "I would like you to come out to California." Mm-hmm. And I believe it was for a week.
Yep.
And go to an EFT thing with other veterans. And I said, "Well, I can't do that." And he goes, "Why?" I said, "It's because I have a fear of flying."
Yeah.
And it took a couple sessions, but nothing to do with EFTs. He finally talked me into going, mm-hmm. and he made me promise never look up anything to do with EFT, never look anything up about it, don't worry about it until you get here.
Yeah.
And I went there for the week. And I went there in San Francisco, mm-hmm. and my first interview with him was, we had a discussion about it. He says, "You don't know anything about EFT?" I said, "No, I know nothing at all about it." And he says, well, we'd like you to work with us for a week. And there was 12 other veterans there. There was a bunch of coaches there. There was a psychiatrist and a psychologist and a medical doctor. And I'll be totally honest with you. The first meeting I had with them, I said, I said, where I live, I said, it's a week away from home. It was totally paid for.
Yeah.
I said, it's a week away from home. I said, this is, and he talked to me about it. I said, this is all a bunch of bullshit. And he said, well, he says, and they're recording all of this. They record everything you do, everything where you go, and all the sessions. He says, well, I'm going to ask you that question at the end of the week, and then I want you to give me a response. I said, okay, fine.
So you told him at the start it was bullshit.
Oh, yeah, I told him it was bullshit. It was
good on you.
A bunch of bullshit, So, and I had a coach, Ingrid I had a coach, Ingrid Ditter, and after 2 days, she was taken away from me, and Gary Craig became my coach. He became my coach and my mentor. And I got a little upset about that. I said, well, I was working with Ingrid. Why am I working with Gary? Mm-hmm. And he came out and he said, no. He says, I want to work with you. And I think he was trying to be nice about it, but he says, Bob, you are so messed up. He says something like, I mean, I was afraid of heights. I was afraid of bees. I was afraid of this. I was afraid of that. He said, no, I'm going to work with you. He says, you're going to do all my sessions with me. And it was an intense week. I mean, everything you do is filmed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything you say is filmed. It's all on film. And there's like 5, 10, 12 people in a room with cameras and sound bites and all this. And going through days and stuff like that. And we talk, and the thing is that when you're a Vietnam vet, you build a wall.
Yeah.
And you don't talk about it.
Yeah.
You never talk about it. I was married for 25 years. I worked for 35 years in communications. Nobody knew, my co-workers, nobody knew that I was even in the Army, never mind that I was in Vietnam. I never talked about it.
Yeah.
But after going through VA hospitals and everything like that, and I went through the whole week, and it was, without a doubt, the most turning point. And at the end of the week, I know I'm skipping a lot of things here, so we can go back if you want.
At the end of the week, you were
at the end of the week, we're sitting there and we're on camera, and he says, "So what do you think about this?"
You have to eat your words.
I turned around and I said, "Well, I'll tell you what. We'll go out to dinner, and I will eat a plate of crow," because I was totally wrong. I was totally comfortable. It was the best thing I ever did. Mm-hmm. Once I did the EFT.
Yeah.
And I went back to my job, and I went back to Pennsylvania, and I was tapping, without exaggeration, I was tapping 75, 80 times a day.
Great.
I was tapping everything. And I worked with a bunch of people and stuff like that. And at the time, I was working as a cook with handicapped children. I cooked for handicapped and physically handicapped, mentally handicapped children. And I was there a few days, and I'm doing my job, and I'm tapping, and everything, and I'm calm and I'm quiet. And my boss, well, first of all, everybody says, "What's the matter? What's going on?" I go, "Nothing." I said, "Everything's fine." He says, "Okay, I got a question to ask you." I go, "What?" He said, "Who are you? You're not the same person here a week ago."
Yeah. And I believe
that
your daughter,
that a few times.
Bob, I believe your daughter said something similar when she
said the same thing. When I after a while of doing EFT and everything else, I called my daughter up, who lives in North Carolina, but I lived in Pennsylvania, and I said I wanted to come down and see you guys, and she was petrified.
Yeah.
Because she's used to the old drunk and yelling and screaming and everything else. And she was really, really scared about it. And I came down, and we were at the lunch, and we were sitting there and we were talking, and she was really scared about me coming down. That's how afraid she was.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there having lunch, and we're talking, and my granddaughter was there who I hadn't seen since she was like 2 or 3. And she said the same thing. She looked at me and she said, "Okay, who are you and what did you do with my dad?"
That's fantastic.
And I got a reaction from, no matter what, because I was so calm and so much at peace with myself, but continuing to do EFT.
Yes.
I had to learn to how to, and it took a while. This wasn't done none of this was done overnight. I started in 2008, we're in 2015.
Yeah.
And I did an interview, and Ingrid was the first person that said, we were talking in the lobby one day, and she says, "Well, you got to find the P word." And I go, "The P word?" And she says, "You have to find the peace."
Yeah.
And I didn't understand what she meant. And with all of the things that I've done to people and all the bad things, and I've done some good things for people and everything else, but a majority of it was manipulating and using people and stuff like that, and finding the P word. And finally, after a while, I learned that regardless how many people are mad at you and no matter what you've done, you have to learn, and it was a very difficult thing to do.
Yes.
You have to learn to forgive yourself.
Exactly. And when you said there was things that you were ashamed of, that was back then. You've now forgiven yourself, and you're at peace with yourself about those things.
Once you forgive yourself, not everybody else is going to forgive you. Not everybody. Yes. You can only show that by the way you extend yourself to other people.
That's right.
But once I learned to forgive myself,
yep.
and I did this a long time ago. I learned to forgive myself. Mm-hmm. Once I learned to forgive myself, no matter what, I was so at peace with myself. I don't get mad. I don't get angry. I don't blow my top. I mean, yes, some things annoy me, and that's where the tapping comes in, and that's when I start doing this. But I'm so at peace with myself. I'm so at calm with myself because I learned to forgive myself of everything I did. And this includes stuff that I did in Vietnam, which were not very nice.
Yes.
And once I learned to forgive myself, everybody else, and so you hear and listen to other people, what they've done and everything else. And you accept yourself, and then I'm actually able to talk to other people and listen to them, not judging them, not doing anything, but just listening and try to give them, a little bit of help and a little bit. Look, God didn't put us on this earth to judge other people. God didn't put us on this earth to try to change things or people or places or whatever.
That's right.
And prejudices and this and that. It's all garbage. It's all
Yeah, I use those words often when I'm tapping with people. Is that I can't change another person's behavior, but I can work on my reactions to them and let go of my judgments or me judging others, and judging others judging me.
Well, you see, at my age of 103,
you're funny.
If somebody says something to me and they're talking, I won't say what I'm thinking, but if somebody's talking stupid, or somebody's talking, really, really dumb, and then they have a television attitude, and and I'll say something like, "Okay, when you get your head out of your ass, then talk to me." I says, "Right now, you don't have a clue as to what you're talking about." Because a lot of people have tunnel vision. Everybody has opinions. Opinions are like armpits. Everybody has them, but they all stink. And that's fine. It doesn't bother me, you know. But going through the EFT has been, without a doubt, I mean, without a doubt, the most amazing
Yeah.
the most amazing thing that I have ever done. And I would like, and that's like a lot of people ask me, since I left, why don't you become a practitioner?
Mm.
Why don't you get certified? Why don't you do that? Because I am able to communicate with other people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And my biggest thing is I would rather just talk to people, try to help them, try to read out to them. I could never, ever, ever, and this is, you can edit this part if you want. I could never charge anybody anything for what Gary Craig did for me.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you help. I mean, you help every time I run a workshop and we talk about trauma. I always Skype you, and you always help me out and answer my students' questions, and I thank you for that. And this is something else that we can have as a recording of how you help my students. The other thing was, I know at one stage, you always use EFT, but you had another very trying event when on Veterans Day your house burnt down. So tell me about that and how you dealt with that.
It was actually, I went to EFC in 2008, Veterans Day of all days. My house burnt on 2009 Veterans Day, 1 year later.
Wow.
And like I say, I was a cook. I was a cook for handicapped and physically, mentally handicapped children. Yep. And I was the only cook in the place.
Yep.
And you can't leave because you only cook there, and they all had specific foods. And I got a call from my roommate. We had a little bit of a fire. 15 minutes later, I get a phone call from the Red Cross saying, "You have to come home. Your house is gone."
Wow.
And I go, okay. So I called. Thank God my boss was still there, so she had to come out and help me. And I said, I gotta go. So I get back to my house, and it was gone. There was nothing. I had no clothes. I had nothing. I had my uniform, my shoes, my socks. That was it.
Wow.
I had absolutely nothing. Normally, before EFT, I would have walked down the block, sat in a bar, and drank all night long. Even though I didn't have any money, but I knew the bartender, he would have let me run up a tab $100.
Wow.
Without putting a dime on the bar. I would have drank all night long, and then I had to be to work at 5 o'clock in the next morning. I had no place to sleep, no place to go. All I had was my car. And so I slept. Actually, I slept upstairs above the bar in a room.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day, my roommate, his aunt, was good enough to let me go to her apartment. And the Red Cross was there like that. The Red Cross, thank God. Anybody ever wants to donate to the Red Cross?
Yeah.
Whether it's $1. They were there the next day. They gave me like $180, put me up in a hotel room for 5 days. And I had a lot of people help me. The place that I worked is a Catholic organization. And she gave me... like money. She not money cash, but she gave me like gift certificates to buy food, to do this, to do that. Ingrid was the biggest help on that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Able to help me get back on my feet and get a place and stuff like that. But without EFT,
and you had EFT at the same time, so that you could go through all of that.
Yeah, if it wasn't for EFT going through that. Yeah. I would have stayed in that bar. I would have just given it all up and everything else. But I did the EFT. And I was literally, without exaggeration, sitting in the bar. I had a beer and I'm going. And I'm repeating the whole stuff to myself. And I was like, and I'm just sitting there going, okay, this is what I got to deal with. Normally, I would have, if it wasn't for EFT, I would have been out there doing God knows what. Probably dead.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for EFT that day, and it was only a year,
mm-hmm.
I left March of 2008, California, and this happened in November of 2009.
Yeah, that's what I love about EFTs. Once you teach it to somebody, it's so self-empowering because you never know when life's challenges are there to hit you in the face, like having a house burnt down, or like the challenge you're facing now. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the challenge you're facing now and how you're dealing with that?
Oh, but March, I slipped and fell,
Mm-hmm.
and I was taken to. It was so bad I had to go to emergency room, and they found blood on a little bit of blood on my brain. And where I live, there's no neurologist or whatever you call them.
Mm-hmm.
So they transferred me to another hospital about 20 miles away. And they did a bunch of tests and stuff like that. But my chest and everything was in such bad shape, was so much in pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent the entire night in the emergency room. They did a CAT scan, an MRI, a PET scan, this and that. And I spent like 4 or 5 days there.
Mm-hmm.
And they found a tumor on my heart. Well, it's right between my heart and my lung. And it's so close to the heart that they could not do a biopsy on it.
Mm.
So after smoking for 30 or 35 years, pretty much comes to light of what it is.
Mm.
So, but they can't do a biopsy on it. So we talked and everything else like that, and the pain was really, really excruciating.
Yeah.
And so they, once I got over that, they sent me home, and I went to see. I had to go see. I had to go into pain management. And also I have when I fell, I also broke a bone in my back at the same time. But they say that was from an old injury. It could have been from Vietnam. It could have been from anything. And so they sent me home and everything, and they said I gotta wait. I gotta wait 30 to 60 days. Mm-hmm. For that, to keep off the smoking and this and that, and clear it up, and then go back and see him. And which was last month, but my insurance company would not approve it because they didn't get a referral from another doctor, so I had to go back and start it all over again. Mm. But they're pretty sure that it is, and the way that I'm handling it. I mean, when you're diagnosed with cancer, especially in the lung or heart, you're pretty much, pretty close to being over. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So
you're faced with looking at my life. I mean, everyone's life ends, but you're faced with the real possibility of that sooner rather than later, and everyone has to deal with their own mortality at some stage, and
yeah, and I'm dealing with the mortality is the fact that I'm not afraid. I mean, I went to Vietnam, so I'm not really afraid of dying. Probably more afraid of the way I'm dying. With the tumor and everything else, and trying to do everything that I possibly can. And I think the biggest fear is making everybody else comfortable around it. Look, if it happens, it happens. If I go into the operating room and I don't get up off the table, then so be it.
Yeah.
If I do, then so be it. I've accepted it, and I'm doing that through the power of EFT. It's giving me that power to accept it,
yeah,
and to deal with it. And it gives me a lot of strength. I mean, especially when you're dealing with something like that, and it's not, like they said they can. The option they really have right now is just to go in, cut out as much as they can, and see how much of the lung they got to take out and how much they don't have to take out. But I'm not gonna. But doing EFT all the time, I'm not going to get on the pity pot. I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. I don't expect other people to do that. I mean, So I deal with it in that manner with EFT.
Yeah.
And if it works out, it works out. If and you know.
Yeah.
But if I leave a legacy of films and tapes and talk to other people and talk to other people about PTSD and talk about the powers of it, and how good it is and how
then
you feel about yourself.
That's right, and then you live on, and your gift to others lives on. So, I'm really proud to know you and have you as a friend, but I'm also proud to see what you're doing for others. Even when you could be sitting there and having a pity party for yourself, but instead you're using EFT, you're accepting it, and you're saying, "How can I leave my legacy to help others?" So that's a good
Right,
on
it's
you.
not that I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't want to die.
No,
I mean,
no,
I'm only 100. I'm only 103. I figure I got a couple of more years
and
left.
you're not curling your toes up yet. But it's about being at peace with whatever's going to happen, and also leaving.
Well, that's the biggest thing is that I'm totally at peace with myself.
Yeah.
And I do have a good support system. I have friends and everything else, and I think actually they're afraid to ask me about it.
Are they?
I go. Listen, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing I can change about it. I see doctors after doctors. They got me on pain management. I got my regular physician. I got this other physician. And I just and I do what they tell me to do. I try the best I can do. As a matter of fact, I just went yesterday. I lost 6 pounds.
Oh, wow. And you tap at the same time, I hope, for all of the aspects of what you're dealing with.
I'm always tapping, and I said, I lost like 5 or 6 pounds, but I totally lost my appetite. And I really don't have the urge to eat anymore, so.
I thought you'd look like you'd lost some weight.
I know, but I mean, I tried. I did, and I try to do the best I can, and I try to do the best I can, but I don't get angry. I don't get frustrated. I mean, it is what it is, and I can't control it. Yeah. I'm beginning to get it back a little bit, and I just try to keep that positive attitude and keep doing the EFT and keep thinking positive and accepting who I am and accepting what I have and accepting everything that goes along with it.
Yeah.
And it actually helps me.
Mm.
Both physically and mentally. It actually, when I do the tapping, it actually helps me, and it keeps me in a zone of a mind.
That's great, Bob. Well, I want to thank you personally, from my heart to yours, for all the work that you're always doing and willing to do for my students and for people that I know and their relatives and all the rest, and for your knowledge and your heartfelt energy that you're always giving to others. And I love you dearly, and you'll always be a friend. And I'm happy to work with you some more on this journey that you're going through now. Okay?
Okay, I love you.
Love you back.
You've been very helpful to me. You've been an inspiration.
Oh,
and
well, you're mine.
I love talking to your groups, even though they never ask questions, and they go like when they see the camera, they go.
No, they don't. They do ask questions. Yes, they do. But you're always a help, and I appreciate it, because they don't often get to see before and after scenarios and ask you questions, because we always watch that 19-minute video of that short video where Gary's working with you.
Right. And we also had that other one where I did the Finding Peace with Ingrid. No.
Yes. That audio. So
yeah,
that's great. So you have a wonderful message to others, and you don't just give it away; you live it, and you show it by action. So thank you.
Okay.
Talk again soon.